Welcome to the channel. This is my second human psychology presentation. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you. So, the first thing I would like to discuss is politely cold or polite coldness. And let's read and get some understanding on this human behavior. Politely cold refers to an interaction that is outwardly courteous, formal, and respectful, but completely lacks warmth or personal connection. It is a way of creating distance while avoid open rudeness, often characterized by short responses, lack of enthusiasm, or a reserved professional demeanor. Key aspects of being politely cold: formal and distant. Interactions are discussed on transactional rather than emotional. Minimalist communication. Responses are often yes, no, or okay without follow up questions. Customer service. A representative answering in a strict, unhelpful, yet technically polite manner. hmm Yeah, I dealt with that before on the phone, like customer service, maybe bank customer service or whatever. I remember one time I had this lady on the phone. She was trying her hardest to annoy me and antagonize me over the phone, but I didn't give her any emotion. And I can, I can tell like all of the air was just deflated out of her. You could just feel the defeat. You know, these antagonizers, these provocateurs, they can't stand it when they don't get the negative reaction they're seeking. They hate it. Don't give it to them. Don't give it up. Next, we have gold, and it says provoke or annoy someone so as to stimulate some action or reaction. Right. Elicit a negative response is what I say. We have some synonyms: provoke, spur, prick, sting, prod, hound, badger, incite, rouse, steer, move, stimulate, motivate, excite, inflame, impel, pressure, rise, dragoon. Yeah, dragoon. I have that word in my vocabulary. Dragoon. I was like, oh, this is a sophisticated way to say someone is goading me. Dragoon. But anyway, but goading is just when someone is provoking you into giving them a negative reaction, a negative response. They are trying to elicit a negative reaction out of you, and don't give it to them. Because once you give them that negative response that they are looking for, at that very moment, you are being controlled. So don't do it. Don't fall for it. All right. Don't fall for it. Don't fall for it. All right. And the next thing I would like to talk about is plausible deniability. Plausible deniability is the ability of leaders or individuals to deny knowledge of or responsibility for actions, unethical behavior, or wrongdoing because there is no direct, concrete evidence providing their involvement. It is a strategic, often planned tactic designed to maintain reputation and avoid accountability by leaving no paper trail. The way I look at plausible deniability is someone does something and they have the room to deny it. That's plausible deniability. They always leave room to deny it. You see what I'm saying? And they always have room to deny their behavior is because most of the behavior that they're displaying is like passive aggressive and is furtive and subtle that leaves them room for plausible deniability. And we'll read more. Key aspects of plausible deniability include lack of evidence. The core component is that the denial is plausible, meaning it is deniable due to the absence of proof linking the person to the action. Right. That's the manipulation. That's what you got to watch out for. That's the trap you can't fall for. Don't fall for that. Intentionally, often set up in advance, particularly in politics or business, where Top level management avoids being informed of illicit actions taken by subordinates. Indirect communication using vague, ambiguous language to order actions. Here we go with that vague and ambiguous language again. Vague. What does vague mean? Vague means something is not clarifying, not quite clear. It's a synonym for the word ambiguous. And ambiguous means, you got ambiguity in the Bible, for example, meaning that something is subject to many different interpretations, many different meanings, not clarifying, not quite clear. And it says to order actions, allowing the leader to claim they did not explicitly authorize legal activity. And you see these politicians do that all the time. They lie. They'll say, well, this person did it. I didn't order that. I didn't authorize that. Plausible deniability because they could say that they didn't do it. They can always use someone else as a scapegoat, right? Context. It is often used in political discourse to distance leaders from scandals while still achieving desired outcomes. Right. We get confused all the time. You know, they confuse us with all this other stuff so we don't think about what? The Epstein files, right? Let's read some more. It says, examples in practice, politics. A high ranking official instructs a subordinate to handle a situation, allowing the official to deny knowledge if the perhaps illegal action is revealed. Business. A CEO is never formed of a perhaps unethical technique used by a subcontractor to save costs. See that? Social interactions, flirting, which allows a person to deny romantic intent if not reciprocated. Interesting. Plausible deniability. You always have room to lie and say, hey, it wasn't me. I didn't do it. I didn't say that. That's what the manipulator does. Subliminal. It's an adjective. Psychology. Adjective. Subliminal. Of a stimulus or mental process below the threshold of sensation or consciousness, perceived by or affecting someone's mind without their being aware of it. Right. So, subliminal. You ever heard of a subliminal message? Somebody might say something and it may go over your head and you may think like, they may be talking about you in an indirect way. It's kind of like how these racist politicians, when they always say these thugs, you know who they're referring to. You know they're talking about black people that commit crimes, right? So that's an example right there. A person may be talking about someone and they don't have to mention their name. They could just say the things that occurred, but you know that by them talking about the things that occurred, who they're speaking about. That's an example of subliminal. Intellectual bully. A intellectual bully uses perceived or actual superior intelligence, knowledge, or specialized vocabulary to demean, intimidate, and make others feel inferior. Right. So an intellectual bully is someone that, basically a condescending person. It may be a person that's like highly educated and they may be speaking to this person that's obviously not as highly educated as them. So, their head gets big, they get puffed up in their pride. So they start treating and speaking to person that doesn't have the level of education that they have. They start being condescending and mistreating them and talking to them like they're stupid. Another example is you may be talking to an intellectual bully, and this intellectual bully may start using these big words that you, as a person that's not as educated as them, may not know these big words. Like, and they do it on purpose to make you feel stupid. It's so many synonyms that you can use to simplify what you're saying. You don't have to use this big word to make a person feel stupid. That's your intention. And I don't do that. I have an expanded vocabulary. I know a lot of words, but depending on who I'm speaking to, I mean, mainly everybody I speak to, I try to just simplify everything. I don't try to express myself to a person in a way where they can't understand me, where they may have to, hey, what that word mean? Let me go look that word up. It says they often use arrogance and condescension. See, I just said that condescending, right? It always leads back to that condescending. It always leads back. Intellectual bullying is condescension, right? As a defense mechanism to mask personal insecurities, right? They are insecure inside because anyone that has to put others down to build themselves up, that's insecurity. You see, I don't have to put anybody down to make myself feel any kind of way. I'm just me. I'm happy being me. I'm secure in myself. I know who I am. So that's why I don't care what people think. But anyway, it says aiming to control situations or people through verbal manipulation and public humiliation. That's sad. That's sad. They publicly humiliate the person. Just say it could be an example like, you might have this big time executive at this office, and you may have the janitor that just cleans up the building, and this executive that runs the building, may be an intellectual bully to that janitor, speaking to them in a condescending tone, speaking to them in big words that they know that person doesn't understand, just to make that person feel stupid and make themselves feel good because they're narcissistic. That's what's going on. Key characteristics and behaviors: condescending tone. They often belittle others' opinions or knowledge. Arrogance. They believe they are inherently smarter than others and often adopt a might makes right mentality. Hmm. Yeah, arrogance. I said that. Remember, I said the head get big, metaphorically speaking, meaning they get pumped up and prideful. You know, they don't know how to humble themselves down and just have basic human decency. You know, just an irrational person. Does no good to argue with people like that. You're wasting your time. Really, really, you are. Mask insecurity. Often, these individuals use intellectual superiority to hide feelings and inadequacies in other areas, such as social or physical prowess. Right. Exactly. You call that a vulnerable narcissist. That's what a vulnerable narcissist does. You know, they love to bully people and treat people like shit. But soon as somebody does it to them, oh, they can't take it. And that's how you know that you're dealing with a vulnerable narcissist. And I love them. Ooh, man, I love people like that. I love people like that, because I analyze them. I analyze their behavior. I see how they treat people. I see their narcissistic personality disorder, their level of narcissistic personality disorder. So I give them a taste of their own medicine. I try them. I try them out. I test them. I see if, hey, can you take the type of behavior that you're doing to everybody else? Can you take it? Can you take the abuse? So I do it to them. And guess what they do? They freak out. They get emotional. They freak out. And I be like, oh, vulnerable narcissism. Okay. Anyway, debate tactics. They often force others into debates and frame complex issues as simplistic black or white situations to win. Right. But being manipulative, making it seem like something is just so simple, just so black and white, when it's not black and white, when it's actually a complex situation. Pardon me. And it says impact of intellectual bullying. Psychological distress causes feelings of insecurity, anxiety, and depression in victims. You see what these people put people through? They put people through all this depression. They start making the victim have insecure, feel insecure, have anxiety, you know. And people that have been through stuff like this, you really should read it's called It's Not You: Surviving Narcissism by Dr. Ramani. You should check that book out. Toxic environment leads to reduced productivity, quiet quitting in workplaces, and a fearful school atmosphere. Right. Yeah. And something could be done about this. They don't have to let these people bully people in school like this and in the workplaces. I know a lot of people get bullied in the workplaces with your narcissistic bosses and your narcissistic managers that's ruling over people with rigor. You know what it means to rule over with rigor? It means that they are your boss, they are over you, and they're just treating you harshly, and there's nothing you can do about it. Anyway, intellectual bullying. That's all I have on that. Intellectual bullying. An intellectual bully, another word for intellectual bully is intellectual snob. So let's get into that. Intellectual snob. An intellectual snob is a person who believes their own knowledge, education, or cultural tastes are superior to those of others, often displaying condescension, arrogance, or disdain towards those they perceive as less educated or cultured. Yeah. And you see this a lot with these racist people. You know, they think that, they the only ones that can read a book. They think that they the only ones that can go to college and get educated. They think everybody else is stupid and they're the only smart ones, which is irrational and dumb to even think. You think you're the only one in the world that can read a book? Are you really that stupid? You can't be that stupid. What else we have? Cultural taste. You think everybody has to assimilate to your cultural taste? You think everybody cares about what you care about? You think what's important to you is so important to others? You can't be that stupid, right? You can't be that dumb. Just because something is important to you doesn't mean that it has to be important to others. Just because you may like something and hold something in high regards doesn't mean everyone else has to feel that way. You do your thing. You live your life. You know, do your thing. Not worried about other people. Often displaying condescension. Right. That condescension because you don't do what we do. You don't act the way we act. You don't know what we know. So we're going to be condescending towards you. We're going to have condescension. We're going to treat you like you're stupid and we're so smart. We're so smart because you don't acquiesce to what I like. Your taste is not like my taste. I'd like to go to the country club, so I'm better. Like all this stupid shit, all this one upmanship, just dumb arrogance, right? Extremely arrogant or disdain toward those they perceived as less educated or cultured, right? And really, you shouldn't treat people that way. You understand? You shouldn't treat people that way. You should treat people the way you want to be treated. This behavior frequently stems from insecurity. There we go again. Insecurity. Insecurity. Because remember, insecure people have to put others down to build themselves up. Remember that. Whenever you see someone doing that, just know it's an insecure person or a need to feel validated, leading the individual to equate their intellectual pursuits with higher human worth. Key characteristics. Excuse me. Key characteristics of intellectual snobbery: condescension and disdain, treating others as inferior based on educational background or lack of specific high cultural knowledge. Right. And to be honest with you, it really doesn't matter how a person treats you. That's so irrelevant. Long as you don't get offended by someone mistreating you, it has no power. It means nothing. If you don't get upset or offended, it has no power. That's why you have to be comfortable and secure within yourself, because there's nothing a person can say to me that'll make me feel insecure. It's like, I don't give a damn what you say. It's just your opinion, which means nothing. The opinion of strangers should not dictate your life. And it says pretentiousness, using complex jargon or big words to impress others than to facilitate understanding. Yeah, we just read that. We're going to use these big words that most people don't know so they can feel stupid and I can feel smart. That's all it is. It's a stupid game. It's a stupid game. Dismissiveness, quickly dismissing popular culture, mainstream interests, or opinions that differ from their own as trashy or unworthy. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Oh, you don't like to do this, so it's you're trashy. You don't like what we like. You're not like us, so you're just trash. All of that, just foolishness, right? It's stupid. You know. At the end of the day, it's an opinion. It's an opinion. It's almost a social construct. Constant evaluation, subjecting others' judgment, often pointing out minor errors or correcting people to establish dominance. Exclusivity, associating only with those they deem to be on their intellectual level. Exactly. All right, that's all I have on that. So the next thing I want to get into is infantilizing. Infantilizing. And it says, treat someone as a child or in a way which denies their maturity in age or experience. And what else is that? Patronizing, right? It's also patronizing. Infantilizing behavior is treating an adult as if they are a child, denying their maturity and competence through condescending language, oversimplification. I just want to touch on that oversimplification because the person that's doing this, they have to explain the most simplest thing. The most simplest thing they have to explain once again to do what? Make you feel stupid and to make themselves feel like they're so smart, build themselves up. They're tearing excuse me, they are tearing you down as they build themselves up. So so for example, it could be something so simple as to it could be it could be something so simple like taking the trash out, and the person will speak to you like this: "Now take the trash can, now take the bag and take it to the trash and walk it like, oversimplifying things, explaining something that doesn't need to be explained. That's oversimplifying. Explaining something that's so blatantly obvious. I'm not, like it's so blatantly obvious. It doesn't need to be explained. It's so simple. It's no need to explain it. Patronizing actions or controlling behaviors, leading to feelings of disrespect and inadequacy, often stemming from sexism, ableism, or perceived superiority, and commonly seen in how women, elders, or people with disabilities are addressed. So check that out. Infantilizing. It's another good word that you need to check out and know. So the next word I want to talk about is rhetorical question. Rhetorical question, a question asked in order to create a dramatic effect or to make a point rather than to get an answer. Exactly. I always say a rhetorical question is a question that is asked that doesn't require a response. The person is asking a question that they already know the answer to. It's really rude and it's really condescending. And most people don't even understand what's being done to them when a person asks rhetorical questions. And I don't answer rhetorical questions. Most of the time, I remain silent, or I may just say, that's a rhetorical question. I don't answer rhetorical questions because I'm not stupid. That's why. What is a rhetorical question example? A rhetorical question is a figure of speech where a question is asked for effect or to make a point, not to get a direct answer, often with an obvious answer, or to prompt the listener to think about an implied statement such as, is the sky blue? Obvious. Or who doesn't love a good story? Suggesting everyone does. Exactly. That's so obvious, right? Like that's a good example right there to ask a person, is the sky blue? Well, of course the sky is blue, dumbass. Why would you ask a rhetorical question? How about I ask you a rhetorical question? Do you have a mother and father? Can I ask you a rhetorical question? Do you have a mother and father? Of course you do. Everyone has a mother and father. Don't waste my time with rhetorical questions. You get what I'm saying? I mean, this is simple baby stuff. I mean, like who you think you're kidding here? Asking stupid rhetorical questions. Don't play that game. So let's talk about rude rhetorics. Rude rhetorics refers to pervasive language characterized by incivility, aggression, and the violation of social norms to grab attention or dominate discourse. It often employs tactics like ad hominem attacks. You know what an ad hominem attack is? You can learn about an ad hominem attack if you read this book. I can't think of the name of the book. I'll maybe put it in the description or something. All right. But I have it on PDF form. It's a great book by the University of Miami. It's a free book you could get online on PDF. It's the best work that I have seen so far on logical fallacies. In that book, it talks about ad hominems, ad hominem attacks. You may see someone do an ad hominem attack in a debate when they can't respond intelligently to what a person has said in the debate, so they result to ad hominem attacks, like attacking the person personally. And you see Donald Trump do that a lot. Demonization and shamelessness to manipulate emotions rather than foster logical debate. Right. That's exactly. How can you logically debate somebody that's introducing logical fallacies, which are illogical? You can't debate that way. I don't understand in a debate why they even let people present or introduce logical fallacies in the debate. That's not how you debate. And that's stupid. It's being dishonest. In today's outrage culture, this approach is frequently used to polarize audiences and assert authority. Key characteristics and tactics. Toxic rhetoric, defined by dishonesty, unaccountability, demonetization, and violence, which shapes identity and challenges ethical arguments. Disruptive nature utilizes outrage culture to trigger rapid emotional and polarized public reactions. Manipulative tactics involve logical fallacies such as false dichotomies, presenting only two opinions, and scapegoating unfairly, blaming groups. Right. You know what scapegoating is? We're going to talk about that later, actually. Well, we don't need to talk about it now. Righteous incivility. Sometimes rude, aggressive speech is adopted as a tool for perceived moral injustification, often with regret or as a last resort. Impact. It reduces complex issues such as oversimplified insults and, according to research, can cause lasting damage to productive public discourse. Right. That's something they don't understand. They don't understand that this type of behavior slows down productivity in the workplace and in business. It slows it down. But you know what? You're so narcissistic and you're so damn selfish, you won't stop doing it so the productivity can speed up. You can't help it. You being a monster and you being toxic and your narcissistic personality is more important than getting the job done. It's more important than making sure the business is getting done and the business is running and making money and everything is going well. You don't care about that. You care about being selfish and being a narcissist. That's what you care about. And asking people stupid, rude, rhetorical questions. That's what you care about. That's why the information says that it slows down productivity. Because guess what? Let me help you understand something. If everybody was happy and healthy in the work environment, obviously things would get done better, right? But if everybody is all toxic and walking on ice and people are, not communicating and getting along well, and it's a toxic work environment, of course things are going to slow down. So obvious. I mean, it's not that hard to understand. You understand? Anyway, next I would like to talk about, and it says, misleading representation is a false statement of fact, material omission, or deceptive conduct made to induce someone into a contract or action. Right. That's a good example right there. Misleading someone to sign a contract. Well, most people, they don't even read the contracts. They don't even read, you know. Can you blame them? Well, yeah and no. I mean, you got to read. a contract if you're going to sign it. Some of these contracts, you may even need a lawyer before you sign, because the information is so complex. And you, as an average Joe that doesn't understand contracts and law, may not be able to comprehend. So that's why you may need a lawyer sometime when you're signing a contract. Sometimes you don't know. Sometimes people just don't want to read the little bitty words because that's a tactic they use in these contracts. They make the print very fine because your eyes may be bad and you may get, discouraged not to read that fine print. But you know what you should do? Because the person that's trying to get you to sign that fine print contract, just sign and get it over here, just sign that is what they tell you, right? Take the time and read it. I don't care if it takes you 30, 45 minutes to read it all. I don't care. Read it. Read it. Read it. And you'll see that the person that's trying to get you to sign that contract, they actually get a little frustrated. They actually get a little impatient, like, oh God, we got somebody that's not stupid. We got somebody that's actually smart, that has some sense, that's actually going to read something before they sign it. I can't play them like a dumbass like I do everybody else. Anyway, God, where we at? So the next thing I would like to discuss is put words in my mouth. It says here, putting words in my mouth is an idiom. It's actually an idiom. It's a figure of speech because the person is not physically right or literally putting words in your mouth. It means that they are saying something that you didn't say. That's why it's an idiom, putting words in my mouth, right? For when someone falsely claims you said or believe something you did not, often misrepresenting your views or fit their own narrative. It is a form of manipulation or miscommunication where others distort your statements, forcing you to defend, right? Now you're on the defensive. Now you have to defend yourself. And what does Machiavelli say about that? The more you defend yourself, the more you look guilty. So now you caught in a trick bag. Now you're on the defensive. Now you got to defend yourself. Don't defend yourself. Don't do it. All right. How about that? Don't defend yourself. Try that out. Don't defend yourself. It's power in not defending yourself. Let them talk. Let them say whatever the hell they want to say. Don't respond. Don't defend yourself. Hell, remain silent if you want. The only time you really have to defend yourself is in court. You don't have to defend yourself to anybody because the more you defend, the more you look guilty and the more you lose power and the more they gain power because you're on the defensive, right? I've always spoken about this. I've spoken about this before. All this stuff ties in. It all ties in. It is all connects. It all corresponds with one another. All right. It says forcing you to defend, clarify, or contradict their inaccurate interpretation. Right. Right. Exactly. Yeah. You're just being manipulated. You're put in a position where you have to defend yourself. Whoop de doo. Don't fall for that. Do not fall for that. Don't defend yourself. You don't have to defend yourself. You should really give that a try. You know what you could say? You can think whatever you want to think. You're free to think that. If that's what you want to think that. I see why you may feel that way. Stuff like that. You could say that. Don't defend them. Don't defend yourself. I'm reading it verbatim. I'm reading it for you, right? Obviously. All right. Anyway, defense. Direct confrontation is often necessary, such as stating, that is not what I said, or I never said that. Yeah, that's a defense, but I choose to not be on the defense because I don't have to defend myself against a lie. I think that's pretty stupid. Think about it. Like really, I want you to really, really think about that. Really think about that. Think about you having to defend yourself from a lie. You're caught in a trick bag because you have to defend yourself because people are lying on you. You don't have to do that. You don't have to defend yourself. Be powerful. Remain silent. That's what you do. All right. Well, the next thing I would like to talk about is outwit, right? One-upmanship. Outwit is part of one-upmanship. So let's talk about it. Outwit, deceive or defeat by greater ingenuity. Outsmart, outthink, outmaneuver, outplay. Okay. And I just want you to know something. If you want to be a witty person, you can actually learn how to be witty. It's books on learning how to be witty. Some people are a natural at being witty. It's just a natural personality of theirs. But if you want to be witty, you can actually learn how to be witty. Just read books on it. That's it. Anything you want to learn, read a book. Hell, read a couple of books on it. You know? What does it mean to be outwitted? Outwitted, outwitting to get the better of by superior ingenuity or cleverness, outsmart. So basically, the person is being manipulative, trying to get the advantage, trying to get the upper hand by being manipulative. And that's why I always say that people should not be gullible and naive because there are people like this out there that's going to take advantage of you. You see, I'm not like that. If I was like that, I wouldn't be informing the public on this type of stuff. I can do that if I wanted to, but I choose not to do that. You see, I'm not a monster like some people. Yeah, so outwitting is basically just one-upmanship. That's all it is. You know, they gotta outsmart the person. They have to insult better. They have to be more clever or more witty and insult better. One-upmanship. That's all outwit is. All right. That's all I have on that. I'm not gonna stay too long. The main purpose of these videos is for you to know these words and these terms and to research them yourself. Always do your own research. Always. Always research for yourself. So I'll leave you with that. So the next word I would like to get into, it's a figure of speech. It's called moving a goalpost is an idiom. See, another idiom. We use metaphors and idioms and symbols every day, and most people don't even know it. I'll give you a figure of speech right now. It's raining cats and dogs. It's not literally raining cats and dogs. All I'm saying is that it's raining heavy outside. Do you get it? Anyway, some people really need to read. I'm not even lying. You know, some people be online talking so stupid and ignorant. It's like, do you actually read a book? You know, I can tell these people are stupid and dumb and ignorant, and they're not wise. They don't have any wisdom, no knowledge, no understanding. And what I don't understand is how can you go your whole life without obtaining knowledge? How can you go your whole life without obtaining knowledge? I don't know. I don't know. Everybody different, I guess. Anyway, it says moving the goalpost is an idiom describing a scenario where someone unfairly changes the rules, requirements, or objectives of a situation while it is already in progress. Right. Moving the goalpost. So let me give you an example. I could give you an example just from my video I just posted not too long ago. So I was speaking with this woman on the sidewalk of a church, and I was speaking with this woman about does the Bible agree with or affirm gay and lesbian lifestyle? So we were speaking about that. Well, I tried to speak with her about that. That was the conversation that I presented. She ignored that, bypassed that, and moved the goalpost and started talking about charity. That's moving the goalpost. I'm not here to talk about charity. I'm here to talk about does the Bible agree with homosexuality? See, she didn't want to talk about that. She evaded that. She evaded that question. She dodged that question and moved the goalpost on to, oh, let's talk about helping people. Yeah, I'm not that stupid. You can't pull that. Well, yeah, I'm not dumb. You can't pull that over on me. You know, it's kind of insulting. It's like, really, do you think you could just move the goalpost on me like that? Obviously, you don't know who I am. Obviously, right? Anyway, used in arguments, business, and personal relationships, this tactic makes success more difficult to achieve, often allowing the person moving them to avoid losing or to maintain control. Exactly. The police do that a lot too, move the goalposts. You may ask the police a question like, why am I being detained? They don't answer your question. They start talking, well, we're just here because they called us. We're just here because they called us. Why am I being detained? We got a call. That's moving the goalpost. I'm asking you, why am I being detained? Not about why somebody called. Don't let them play you stupid like that. You understand? Don't let them play you like that. Be smart. Be wise. Listen to me. Anyway, but yeah, moving the goalpost is a figure of speech. I'm sorry. Moving the goal. Yeah, I said that right. Moving the goalpost is a figure of speech. Is an idiom. All right. So if you just Google figures of speech, you'll see idiom, metaphor, symbol, etc., etc., etc. All right. Key aspects of this behavior include shifting standards in the argument. This is a fallacy. See that? It's a fallacy. You know what a fallacy is in the argument? It's illogical. It's illogical because the reason why it's illogical in a formal debate is because in a formal debate, you're not allowed to move the goalposts. You have to deal with the subject that's at hand. You don't get to question dodge in a formal debate. You don't get to introduce logical fallacies in a debate. You get my point? This is a fallacy where someone rejects evidence or a claim, then demands new, higher criteria of proof. Exactly. You constantly move the goalpost. You don't deal with this what I asked. You move the goalpost, then you move the goalpost, then you move the goalpost. You got no. Don't let them move the goalpost. You know what you do? If they try to move the goalpost, you go right back to your point. You go right back to where you were. And if they are not willing to deal with that point, you do not proceed in the conversation. Do not proceed in the conversation if they are not willing to answer what you just asked of them. Do not let them move the goalpost on you. That's how you deal with that. Or you can express to them that you have not answered my question. You're moving the goalpost, and I am not willing to proceed in this conversation until my question is answered. That's how you deal with that. Be very assertive about it. Now I want to move on to divert. We can move on to divert. All right. Because this all ties in, divert. And we're not going to make this too long because we have two other words that synonyms with divert. So we're not going to be too long on this. I'm going to just read this and just move to the next. I'm making it long now by running my mouth, right? Anyway, divert. Divert. Call someone or something to change course or turn from one direction to another. Reroute, redirect. Exactly. So that's basically moving the goalposts. You're redirecting the subject to something else. You're changing the subject. You're changing the subject. That's what it is. Diverting. Moving the goalposts is a synonym for divert, right? Call someone or something to change course. You changed it. You just switched it around. Divert. So we have redirect, redirect. What we have here? Direct something to a new or different place or purpose. Right. Move the goalposts on you. You'll be talking about one thing, they just switch it up. Oh no, it's this, it's that. Oh, let's talk about what I asked. The police do this a lot. You may ask a cop, why do you need my ID? I have not committed a crime. Can you give me reasonable, articulable an explanation as to a crime that I'm committing? Well, we're just checking you out. We check everybody out. And they play you like that. You fall for it because you're stupid, because you're an idiot. That's why you fall for it. They get the redirect on you. And let's just talk about deflect. All right, deflect. Cause something to change direction by interposing something turn aside from a straight course. Right, exactly. Same thing. And here's your synonyms right here, divert. So it's telling you that these words, divert, redirect, and deflect, are all synonyms. They all basically mean the same thing. The figure of speech, moving the goalposts, means to divert, redirect, deflect. And that's all I have on that. Yeah, I don't want to make this video too long, so I'm going to end this and we'll pick up at a later date and we'll do part 3.